Prosperity in Black America. What will this require? Is Black business prospering? Are we reaching women and minority-owned businesses? How do we achieve earning parity for wealth for our families? Do our children really have access to education? Will our families have choices for our children? Prison pipelines, mass incarceration, tearing our families apart. A healthcare system not accessible to the masses. The disproportionate termination of Black women from corporate America. When will we actually begin to address what's really at play? How do Black people gain more power to help make these changes? This requires a lot of political will and courage. I'm that provocateur of change. I am Cindi Bright. Welcome to HeartBeat.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to HeartBeat on Wednesday evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. Hey, this evening we're going to talk about, or at least going to attempt to talk about what I'm characterizing as the bullies who appear to be winning out in this society. This past week, I can't wait for Aaron and Stephanie to come in and talk about this because there's just been so much every week, but so much this week. Watching some of the things that are unfolding with how bullies are treating people. And so I guess what kind of got this triggered in me a little bit was listening to this father's TikTok where he was talking about his children. He has biracial children, and his child was in school and he got called and he had to go pick the child up. But what these young children were being subject to, the name calling, the ridiculing, at such a young age in the schools. And the school is basically telling them there's not a whole lot they can do. They just, call the parents. And this particular parent was talking about that he was considering pulling his child out of this particular school because he's afraid of what this is going to entail when it's starting this early. When we look, we talk about every week, we talk about politics on here. We've got the number one bully running for the highest office in the country. How is that happening? This past 24 hours, we have Diddy and the 1,000 bottles of baby oil found because we know that they're bullying and raping women, and there's just so much to it. And to watch how society treats the bullies, we've got to get extra secret service because Trump's been shot at twice. Not the fact that he shouldn't even be on the ticket running, but the fact that we have to put more taxpayer money to protect the bully. We've got to lawyers in court trying to get home arrest so that the bully can stay free and not have to have the consequences. Like this bully society, it's what I feel has cost American business, a lot because we are protecting bullies in the workplace. There's so much to it. And so why is that? Why are we at a point where the only people that are believed or protected are the people that are creating harm to other people? Let me welcome in Aaron with us and Stephanie Coverson here with me. I'm hearing some echoing going on. Is there another video? Somebody's part? Because okay, something's going on with the video here. Aaron, can you sign out and sign back out? And I wasn't doing that before you signed out. Let's see if when you sign back in, that'll work. Stephanie, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, and it's not echoing now?
Mm-mm.
No, it's not. Okay,
Not on my end.
let's see if that solves it with her signing back in. That seems like it. So did you hear kind of the, let's see, Aaron's back here. Let's see. Okay, Aaron, it wasn't doing it when you were gone. Let's see if you're back now.
I'm back. I can hear you now.
Okay, better.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good. Yes, it's better. Okay, good deal. What are y'all thoughts? I mean, we talk a lot during the week, although this week I've had a lot going on and I feel like I haven't talked to either one of you in a few days. But so much going on. Aaron, I think you might have posted about the child that I'm referring to, or the parent, or because somebody I know had made comments about that as well. And so when I'm looking at, like, every single day, this whole notion of the protecting of bullies, it just seems to have escalated. I don't know if that's just my perception of it, but I definitely wanted to have this conversation because I feel like it's worth having. What are both of your thoughts about things about this tonight?
From my perspective, I mean, I think that the bullying has always been the case, particularly in schools. And I will even say,
Yes.
Can you
Mhm.
all hear me?
And I'll just say, like, from my own experience being like the only
Go ahead,
black
Sarah.
child in the school, um, uh, like, I don't really see much has changed, even though, there's all this, anti-bullying training and initiatives and all of the things. I think we're still very conflict uh, averse as a society, and in particular for standing up for folks who are being targeted and bullied because of some ways folks are afraid, right? If I stand up, if I say something, then I might be bullied too. So, like, even parents, like the parents of this of uh the child that is doing the bullying, like, sometimes you have people fearful of, if I say something, then, the parents are going to come for me. And so I think it's sort of this mixture
Mm,
of, we're not going to take it seriously, like sticks and stones, but
mm,
also this real fear that, like, the parents may come for
mm.
me.
Did either of you see this TikTok with this little girl where her mom picks her up from school because the principal had called, and she got in the back seat? Erin, you saw it, and she was mouthing off to, did you see it too, Stephanie? Where
Uh,
to her mom, and she had taken the scissors and cut the little girl's
that
hair.
child's hair.
Yes. And so to watch, somebody stitched it a couple times, because when I saw one of the stitches, and one of the people who stitched it said, this is a parent issue. It's what you're talking about, Steph. And he said, I mean, I didn't say what I wanted to say in the comments, because it would take them sending that child to one of our houses for maybe 3 hours,
Mm.
and we would check, get that in check pretty quick. But to your point about what's happening in the homes, we talked about that last week a little bit. What's happening in the homes of people that are either not disciplining, um, and or there's no consequences to their behavior. And here we are watching it unfold in a huge way in front of our very eyes, um, with the the presidential election, and how a big bully, should he win, I'm listening to this commentary every day about what happens if he gets in, like what will happen. So, in the society that we have, where the bullies are not ever addressed, we're always expecting the people harmed. Can you imagine what Cassie has had to live with the last 20 years? Can you just imagine how, if that video had not surfaced about her being beaten like that by the elevator, what would have happened? Or would something have happened?
I think social media has played such a huge role in all of this. And I think about something that Stephanie said. Bullying has been around forever. I did an experience in Europe. This kind of bullying is not, it's just not part of the culture. Like, we just didn't, in the schools that I attended, we didn't experience that kind of belittling people was not part of the culture. So I saw it on TV. I saw it in American TV shows, the bullying and the pantsing people when they started high school and all of that. But I would say
Mhm.
bullying in America has been around forever. But there's a way that social media now has helped us, number one, catch people who are bullying in public and then filming themselves or getting caught on film. So that's number one. But then also it allows people to bully without consequence too. So you can bully
Mhm.
now behind a keyboard without a face too. But then it also exponentially shares the bullying of people that are really powerful, like Donald Trump. And I've been telling people for a long time, and I know the three of us have talked about this. Like, we're all Jesus girls. I am not anti-Republican, but I am anti-Donald Trump. I think for me as a classroom teacher, as a mother, I have spent 35 years telling children to be kind to one another. I've spent 35 years telling children that when someone says something nasty to you, you don't respond in kind, that you
Mhm.
are the bigger person. And it's so hard to tell children to do that when they see someone who's been the leader of the free world getting away with that stuff and promoting it and celebrating it. And so it's really painful for me as a Christian woman to see so many Christians not speak up about it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I have to be honest and say I'm anti-Republican. And here's why. Donald Trump could not have become president without the assistance of the Republican Party. So the votes, the campaigning, sort of all of these things. And so we can we can reject the bully, right? So there is something about Donald Trump and his bullying behavior that was attractive to the Republican Party. And there was also something very attractive to um, folks to go in and cast that ballot, knowing that he talked about grabbing women by the pussy. He took out the ad about the Central Park, I'm gonna call them the exonerated five, but calling for them to get the death penalty, not all of the things that we already know. And something along the line, folks could not say, ooh, no, we need to go, like, I'm going to vote for so and so in the primary, right? Um, and so he could be a bad actor all day long, but be a bad actor at Mar-a-Lago because
Mm.
nobody voted
Holding
for
him
him and his
accountable.
bullshit. Yeah.
Did you, either of you or both of you, see? I think she's one of the elected people out of Arkansas, Huckabee, today. Did you hear her comments about?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
So, speaking of another bully, right? Allowed
Mhm.
to be up on national TV and degrading another woman like that, with no knowledge of the vice president's background decisions. Like, it's none of our business why she made the choices she has. It's none of our business, and to belittle her like that and it be laughed at and then aired. I've been on my this last couple weeks, I've been on my TikTok just kind of pissed off at the regular media because we're continuing to give airtime to those kind of folks instead of focusing on, issues like this and ways to try to solve, like if we ways to solve these problems. Aaron, when you talk about, I've heard you say this before, that this was not part of any other culture in any other country that you lived in. What's happening here, that it, because it's just getting worse and worse and worse. um, it's getting worse. And when our children can't even go to school, I mean, I had a hard time in school. I was picked on and bullied a lot as a child. I mean, that was a long time ago. So why has this not changed? How come the people who are doing this are still being allowed to get away with it? Because that's exactly what's happening. They're getting
Mhm.
away with it. We are not holding. I mean, when we are having national 5 days worth of media coverage about getting more Secret Service to protect another bully, we've lost our way. Like, okay, maybe you want to talk about it on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, why are we still concerned about that? Like,
Mhm.
But
it's
America's always
very.
been a bully, though. America's always been a bully. I think that's the other difference, that I mean, the United States was in a lot of ways birthed in bullyism, just how it was formed. It was formed as the bully. It had bullying behaviors in terms of how it thought about indigenous people here.
Mhm.
I've been seeing a lot of people talk about slavery on TikTok this week, and but there was slavery everywhere. But we had a different form of slavery. Chattel slavery was
We had
the
a
worst.
special slavery. Mhm.
Yes, and so you talk about bullying, and I think about policing even. And I don't know if you all saw the video that was stitched with the white police officer, younger guy, who this week decided to make a TikTok. Last week, he decided to make a TikTok talking about how he actively messes with people while he's on duty, and if he's on the road, he'll actively. And then it got stitched by a young black man who's brilliant. His name is David, and he's brilliant. And he said, "Dude, I know you were trying to be funny, but this is not funny at all." But I think about even how policing was formed and how policing operates right now, bullyish behavior. So
Yeah.
there's so many ways I think that this country is bathed in bullying, and it has always been.
Yep. 100.
And it's not solving for, I was asking before we went live, like we here in Seattle are shutting down many of our Seattle public schools. I was trying to catch some of the news story stuff. I don't know if you caught any of it about some of the schools that are closing. And people are choosing to, so it's it's the conversation Aaron and I have once every 6 months, right? Like some of them are choosing to for private schools, not planning on coming back to the public schools. Public schools are closing down. They're not funding. The schools are too crowded. Seattle has not recovered post COVID. Businesses are like the perfect storm has hit. Talent has walked away from business. In fact, I just saw, I don't know if you caught, Amazon has ordered people back to work 5 days a week now.
Saw that.
That's an interesting order. I think the way the article was written, the spirit of it was to help build, economic engine and small businesses that are around that area, again, restaurants and all that, to help, but that creates that problem again, that people got away from not having to come in and work for bullies. And I think many times people don't recognize, because that bully may be wearing, her Jimmy Choo to the office that day. And so people think that she's a professional and she's this, when in fact she is a bully in the workplace. And so it just feels to me like the perfect storm has hit, between our education, our parents pulling their kids away from these environments, people choosing to leave corporate America. The demographic of the world has changed. And so you have this all new set of parents who are parenting biracial children who have not had to deal with that whole element of it ever. And now they're experiencing the things they used to hear about all the time. Like it just feels like there's no solutions being talked about from much more senior levels, either through political policy or business. Like somehow this whole issue of bullying has got to be a top of ticket conversation and action taken. We Right? How do you?
I think it's a microcosm of society, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
why does bigotry and racism and sexism and homophobia and all of the isms still exist? Because we allow it, right? And so I'm not sure how we have an expectation. I mean, and we should expect children not to be bullied. But it makes it difficult, to enforce those expectations when there is a reckoning that needs to happen. Like we still don't have people with all of the data available that can agree that, for example, race is one of the top indicators of your life expectancy and your outcomes when you control for like we still can't agree that systemic racism
Mm,
exists.
Exists.
And
mm,
then I think there's this other issue. I want to talk about a video that I saw on TikTok about a bento box. Did anybody see the bento box video?
mm,
So a girl got a $50 bento box from like a relative for like a gift giving occasion. She took her lunch to school the next day. Bully steals the bento box, and baby girl doesn't come home with the bento box. Next day, Bully comes to school with the bento box with her lunch packed in the bento box, which means mother or parent
Allowed it.
did not say, this is not your Wonder Woman lunchbox. Where did you get this really nice bento box from? So, long story short, the uh, parent of the girl who the bento box belonged to, like, asked the school to intervene, and they're like, no, not going to do it. So then finally, the mother goes up to the school, takes the bento box back, tries to get the teacher to do it. Teacher won't do it. And this is over the lunchtime. So she finally takes the bento box. And the teacher has the audacity to ask, well, can't Susie like finish her lunch in the like,
Oh
can't
my
she have it for the rest of the day? Are you serious? Right? Are you serious? So I think this is this, again, this larger story where what we sort of launched with, like, why are we mollycoddling
Mhm,
bullies?
Yeah.
mhm. That's a great example of it, like, something that egregious, and we still wanna pamper the person who creates the harm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, all the time. Yeah, it's pretty,
It's
you know Go ahead, Erin.
it's also the reason, like, I am still so devoted to this Project Kindness because I just refuse. I know that I have no control over the presidential election, but I refuse to just sit by and allow for the status quo. And so I may not be able to change anything but the little hundreds of people that I get to influence, but I am determined to invite people into a better way, starting with schools, but really inviting our politicians, our local politicians, to think differently about how they're engaging, even in their politics, even in their campaigns, to engage differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I was committed to when I ran for office. Is I am not gonna. I tell people, go and look at all my social media from 2016. You won't see me talk bad about my opponent at all in my social media. And so I don't think we can ask people to do what we're not willing to do, but I believe that we can model, and we have to, at every level, we have to model something different.
Yeah.
Absent, what Stephanie just reminded me of when you described the mother had to go take matters into her own hand. Those are the Aunt Viv moments where I remember my son saying, Mom, you showed up at the school with one earring on and a flip flop in your bathrobe, right? When something's going wrong. Why should we have to get to that point where you have to show up for your child to be treated right? But I guess the question to ponder is, what you're just describing, Aaron, around, we can show up and be the change we want to see in the world. The growth trajectory of that problem is getting further and further divisive. And so
Mhm.
there's an intersection that has to be, like, some sort of interference has to come. Like, we got to deal with that as a nation, or when this, I mean, we're going to face it here on November the 5th, because if Vice President Harris wins, we're going to have a whole backlash of the bullies are all going to come out in full force with their guns everywhere and start trying to, take, steal, and do what they normally do. And if she doesn't win, then we are all going to be victims of these bullies that are going to be out. And so it feels like something, some sort of policy, or we can't even get gun laws passed. So I guess, maybe, am I just dreaming here, that there's something that can be done um, to try to deal with the whole issue? Because, again, the intersection of business, education, like, our whole society is just being disrupted, because those are the people that are being allowed to prevail. They're the ones who are taking the jobs, the high pay. That's not good for American business. Like, so, I was wrestling with it this week. I was wrestling with how many of these people, the Cosbys and Diddy's and Weinstein's and all of these gross men are doing what they're doing and basically getting away with for the most part. Like, look what it takes to bring people to justice, right? Look what it takes to get them to justice.
I mean,
What?
and let's be clear, like, just want to touch on Diddy for a moment. This was a known quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So these freak offs, like, I knew about those early on. And I was on the West Coast. So, like, it was an open secret. Like, I don't think anybody knew the extent unless you were at said party. But I remember, people sort of talking about freak offs. I also remember, and I can't remember the lady's name, who was shot in the face, allegedly, supposedly, by Diddy, and told the plastic surgeon, like, in the event I don't survive this surgery, Sean Combs shot me in the face. And then ultimately, one of his friends, I guess, pled guilty, took the L and served time in prison or whatever. But part of the problem is, you know, we get the behaviors that we allow to happen. And I also think it's important to say that it wasn't just women being raped and abused, according to these documents. It was also men, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's that extra layer. Like, I would rather be raped in silent than somebody think that I'm gay, right? So this awful stigma, um, in our own Black communities about, um, being a member of the LGBTQ community, being perceived as gay. And so there's that extra layer of, fear of speaking up.
Do you think this was the issue that Christian Keys was talking about when do you remember a few months ago when we were texting each other about that live video do you think this was that issue?
I do.
Mhm.
I do. Hmm.
So
Because
funny.
it
I
came
paid
out
no
right around the
attention to
time the
P. Diddy.
whispers about Diddy started.
Would you say, Erin?
I paid no attention to Diddy at all. Like I have not a thing, but it was during my like super Christian evangelical phase where I wasn't supposed to listen to any non-Christian music. So I completely missed all of Diddy's career
Mhm.
entirely. So I'm just learning about it now, watching TikTok.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So sad.
Diddy ran like hip hop, like, he was dancing if he wasn't dancing in the background, he was producing the track. If he wasn't producing the track, he was producing the video. Like, if you wanted to do anything in hip hop or R&B, like,
I mean,
all roads
he
through
was
bad.
Sean John, right? His whole clothing line was Sean John. He is the Ciroc. He's the one who created Ciroc. Like, he's got this multiple billion-dollar enterprise. I mean, I
Mhm.
wasn't I mean, I liked him. I mean, followed him, followed his music, but I'm just disgusted over, um, I'm just disgusted. Like, just to mentally sit and think about that video of Cassie and how many more other women are going to come forward in all of this. It's going to be fascinating to see how and men, to your point, Steph,
Mhm.
right? Who's going to come forward and what's going to come out of the woodworks because of all of this. When he came out a couple of months ago with that apology, and then, why is it people want to call on Jesus when you get to the end of your ropes, right? Like, so he came out with this whole apologizing, and so I guess we all kind of knew it was going to be bad. But oh boy, this is just something.
Now, Aaron, have you been following like the indictment and stuff that dropped it all? Like, have
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, higher level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Mhm.
um, Yeah, a bottle of baby oil lasts me like a year.
I don't
Oh my
even
gosh,
use
that was
I was
so
trying to think, well,
gross.
do I even use baby oil? Like, I mean, I just
Yeah, that was my thing, and, like, taking a daily shower and slathering down like, I have transitioned to, like, sweet almond oil, but, like, a bottle of
Money
baby
and
oil would
power
last me a
corrupt.
year.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But it's like,
completely.
he's just the latest example, right? Like this feels like it's in the news all the time. So you get to see all the celebrities and all the, Harvey Weinstein, and he's back
He's
and
back.
conviction overturned. Like you can't hold these people accountable, right? You got all of Trump's convictions and sentencing, all of that is postponed till God knows when. Let's give him to the 11th hour to win the presidency. And then, oh, we don't have any laws in place that stop him from actually serving. And he can actually go in and, what do you call it when you pardon himself?
Pardon yourself.
So,
Mhm.
you know, will, yeah, what is it going to take, I guess? And just, again, what triggered this for me, this conversation, was listening to the issue about the children, because what has gotten so interesting for me is to watch now that there's a whole lot more biracial children, mixed race. And so you now have parents who have not had to historically deal with the kind of things you didn't grow up with, Aaron, not coming from this country. But
Mhm.
I assume this is safe to say, Stephanie, you grew up dealing with a lot of stuff too. Um, and
Mhm.
so now we are here with all these parents who are like going, what do we do? Like, where do I put my child? And my child isn't even safe to go to school. And, my child is being called the N word, and I got to go to the school myself and get the lunchbox back because they won't do anything about the bullies. Right.
Yeah,
This can't end well. This can't end well.
yeah. I mean, I think that systems, and we know this from our work in HR, right? So people weaponize these systems all the times, right? So Donald Trump is very intentionally trying to run out the clock.
Mhm.
So the legal system is not about justice, despite the blindfolded lady with the scale being its motto. Really, the way that our justice system shows up now is who has the most money and who has the
Mhm.
right complexion.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we have people in our society that, because um, uh, they have been involved with the legal processing system and have gone to prison, served their time, are back in society, cannot get a job,
Mhm.
cannot vote. And we have this asshole
Mhm.
running to be the president of the United States with the nuclear codes.
Mhm.
And nobody seems to see anything wrong with it. And let
Mhm.
me say, not say nobody, but folks that are still supporting, like, we have polls that show Vice President Harris neck and neck with this idiot.
I know. I know. What do we got? 48 days, 47 days. Oh my goodness. I feel like I don't know what to do. Like, what do we do? What's going to happen? Like, by the way, did you guys I grabbed Hillary's book that came out yesterday. I can't wait to read it. Did you hear she was on Rachel Maddow show? Was it last night or the night
Mm-mm.
before? And listening to her talk about, I just really have so much respect for Hillary Clinton. But listening to her talk about the excitement of where we are, but the warning about, this isn't an electoral college issue. And
Mhm.
so we have to contend with that whole issue. And I won't, maybe you can explain it better, but everything that's going on in Georgia now, with that, they're trying to pass some sort of law so that they don't have to certify the votes by X date, and then that will help keep that'll help keep the
On
electoral,
hold.
yes,
Mhm.
on hold.
Mhm.
And so we have to worry about that because, and that was one of the things that Hillary was talking about, is that, I mean, they're going to cheat their way to the victory. This is what they're attempting to do.
Mhm.
So
It must be really interesting and sad, really, right? If the only way that you can get elected is to cheat. So, like, you don't really have a platform, other than make America great again, and we're going to close the borders, but we're not going to tell you how. We're going to reduce taxes.
he has a
But
concept of it, though, Steph.
he's got a concept of a plan. And so you let any Black woman in corporate America, nonprofit or higher ed, talk about in their role of things that they're in charge of, that they have a concept of a plan. They would then have a concept of an unemployment check. Like, it's amazing to me.
I know.
It's absolutely amazing to me. And it's absolutely amazing to me that legacy media failed to,
Absolutely.
ask the hard hitting, like, if they were as concerned about Kamala Harris using AAVE as they were about where this asshole's tax returns were, like, we'd be in a completely different place. Or even, okay, so you're going to repeal Obamacare, but what are you going to replace it with? If they had the tenacity to get to the truth about frivolous shit about Kamala Harris, if they actually turn that energy onto Donald Trump, like, we would be in a better place as a country.
He's never going to be held. I mean, he did not have to answer the questions. What I read something about, I don't remember the number, but how many times he he did not answer the question versus her, like just off the charts. He gets away with it. But to your point, the media let him. And they, in fact, turned his mic back on several times after the rule said that they weren't going to do that. And so, and then they're, to your point about, let a Black woman come in with the concept of a plan. They keep harping on, we don't know her. You know everything you need to know about him. So that should be enough to make that decision. And when you hold on to that kind of a narrative, is an excuse, and it's the coddling of the offender again, right? It's the continued protecting the bully.
It is by definition misogynoir, the dislike and mistrust of, what do you mean you don't know her? Does she need to come to 100 or 650 million Americans' homes, like every person's home in the US, and have a beer? Like, are those the same expectations that you have of Donald Trump?
And to be honest, even though our numbers are not great, I think the thing that has been just hurting my heart over the last week and a half or so is the numbers of Black men who are saying those kinds of things. And, we need to know her better and she needs to earn our vote. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? Like, what are you asking of Donald Trump other than your $1,200 stimulus check? Like, what are you asking of him? What are you requiring of him?
He did not actually give them.
Right. Right. And I wonder how many homes were foreclosed upon, eviction notices served, and cars repossessed because the Department of Treasury had to put the distribution process on hold so that he could sign the little $1,200 checks.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to flip my desk, but it's too heavy.
It is beyond frustrating to have to live through this, and to know that no matter what the outcome, the bullies are going to come one way or the other. And because of this pattern of what we see, I mean, I would like to go one day. It's been like 9 years now, right? That he's been in the news every single day for 9 years since he ran the first time. We have not been able to get out of a news cycle about him. And so he's getting everything he wants. And I just want to get out of a news cycle about him. I don't care about how close the bushes were to the main street, about, I don't care. I'm sorry that happened for a second time, but why are we so concerned about his protection? Why are we so concerned about that at this juncture? He's inciting, and then the person, John David, I think is his, John David Vance, who's on the ticket with him um, to stir up so much hatred. Are you hearing all these stories coming out of Springfield now? What's happening to the citizens there that he's
Children
supposedly,
and
and the children,
Mhm.
that, and he's
can I
there.
share
hmm
can I share a good piece of news?
hmm
Please. Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
For the first time, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Somebody was trying to call me and I had to hang up on them. Anyway, for the first time in my adult life, I am seeing some white folks who consider themselves as allies finally connect to, oh my gosh, this is what you've been through. Oh my gosh, now that I'm watching Kamala, and so even though it's not the end all be all, people are not just becoming completely aware, but I am watching some people who have been close to understanding finally like really getting it and saying, "Oh my gosh, yeah, you've told me the story a million times and now that I see it on this really national stage, woof, wow. Okay." And so that part of this, and I'm watching white folks educate other white folks around this stuff, and that for me has been the one kind of ray of light in all of this is just watching some people stand up who've not taken a stand before, watching people speak up who have been quiet.
That has been a blessing to see. And it grad school, like it puts me in the mind of like Dr. Derek Bell's convergence theory,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like uh, if this person is elected into office, like what we have left to do is shuffle around the deck chairs on the Titanic. So it is in everybody's collective interest, to ensure this wackadoo is not reelected.
I'm reacting inside, Aaron. I'm reacting inside that, yes, it's nice that people are getting it, but why has it taken this much for that to,
Forever. I know. Yes,
yeah.
I agree. I agree.
And why, when Aaron said something in 2016, why has it taken this long to connect the dot? Like that to
Mhm.
me explains how deeply, um, some folks have their heels dug into their own beliefs, that they believe that they know so much and they haven't a clue, and nor will they take our word for what our experiences are. And so, back to Cassie, right? Like she brought those issues forward. She had to go sue and do what she had to do. And it all had to be hushed up. And, whoever leaked the video is how this all, that's the hero in all of this. But why do we have to come to this point before we are believed and before any action is taken? And the damage is, like in her case, the damage is done to her. There's nothing that's ever going to make her life, quote unquote, normal,
Yeah.
right? Nothing. And so for all the I mean, I didn't have the same, my experience was different when I ran. My experience was different. I had issues, but not the kind of issues that you have because of who you went up against. And, the truth is, I mean, he still sits in office too,
Yeah.
right? That person who
Yeah.
created so much harm to you and your family still sits in a position of power in Washington, in Olympia, Washington, leading education, leading that system. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
And we can't get them out. We run people against them. And, once you get them in, you can't get them unseated. And then when you have people, this is horrible to say, but when their sharpshooting skills aren't sharp, they have 2 attempts to try to deal with it and they don't, we get stuck with these people. I'm worried for that. I'm worried for 45 more days and I want to be more optimistic. It's so frustrating to see um, the advocacy to protect that type of person is so um, there's so much energy behind making sure that he's done right. There's not energy behind, oh my God, what should we do for her?
I think we have a vested interest. So this is me being a little conspiratorial, tongue in cheek, but kind of serious. We have a vested interest in wrapping that man in bubble wrap. We do for the
Yep, I
next
agree. I
45
agree.
days.
Yep, I
Because
agree.
if something happens to him and he is
Mhm.
replaced in that ticket, then,
The
the
worst
people, the
option.
never Trumpers are, now suddenly, they're gonna pretend like the Republican Party is not ravaged by, these various societal cancer, racism, sexism, homophobia, like all of the isms. They're gonna pretend like the problem is solved because Donald Trump is no longer at the head of the party. The problem is he's at the head of the party because that's who they elect. That's who they felt best fit, you know, their vibe or whatever. Um, so put all of the security on him because I want him mollywopped on
Yeah, me too.
November 5th.
Yeah.
I also would encourage us, even though this show specifically focuses on Washington State, if each person watching the show can reach out to family who's not in the state,
Mhm.
and we've got to do that and reach out in every way that we possibly can to. I really believe if more people get out to vote, period, um,
Mhm.
we'll have a better result for Kamala. And so I am trying to encourage my children and their friends who are in their late 20s who have felt really like their votes don't matter. If we can get them out to vote and understand what's
Mhm.
at stake. And so that is what I would encourage everybody watching, especially your children and your grandchildren who are 18 and over. We got to get those young people out to vote and help them understand
Mhm.
why it's so important to vote.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. And we talk mostly about Washington state politics, but from a viewership, we are reaching outside of Washington state,
Mm,
but we're hitting blue areas. So you know, viewers that are following are coming out of blue areas that are tending to vote blue anyhow. So trying to get to maybe to young blue voters, I think is a really good point.
mhm.
Trying
Yeah,
to make sure we
yeah.
get those
Because the
kids.
red are going to vote. The red are
Yeah,
gonna vote red anyway. I mean, the
yeah,
MAGA folks are gonna vote MAGA anyway.
yeah,
And just as I look at the data, I've looked at a number of polls over the last couple of weeks. Those red folks are gonna stay. It's those undecided people
yeah,
and those who are not even
and
registered to vote yet that I think we need to really focus on.
yeah, I agree
Mhm.
with that. I'm hopeful that how many, what did they say, 400,000 that Taylor Swift hit that demographic of people, and there were like, was it 400,000 more people registered
Yeah,
to vote after her
registered.
endorsement? Hopefully there's some more, surprised endorsements that come. I was disappointed to hear today about the labor unions, but they
Can
didn't
we talk
support.
about that though?
Yeah.
Because they got in trouble, right? So there were some discrimination issues around the treatment of Black and Hispanic union members, right? And so I really think that the lack of endorsement is in response to them getting their hands spanked more than it
Mhm.
is about they dislike Kamala Harris or they don't think Kamala Harris can do a good job or whatever. So I believe it's retaliatory in that way.
Yeah, I'm not knowledgeable of the hand slapping. What did they get in their hand slapped for?
So it was really about of um, the treatment of Black and Hispanic uh, labor folks membership.
Mm,
And so, I mean, and that has always been, I think, an interesting tension point always in unions,
Yep.
right? And so unions have had a history of
mhm,
excluding Black and Brown people and women from their memberships, and begrudgingly have had to take folks, in. Um, and you can see, we'll say, um, statistically, a difference in the vigor in which they advocate for their memberships
mm,
along racialized lines. Not picking on the unions specifically, because that thread, it exists in education, it exists
mhm,
in healthcare, it exists in law enforcement, it also exists in labor.
mhm,
And so I really think that their declination, one, is a disservice to their membership, um,
Hmm.
and all of the benefits that the policies that Vice President Harris has rolled out will specifically benefit blue collar workers.
mhm.
And so it's very self-serving and retaliatory.
Have y'all
Now, I
heard
want to say
any?
the Teamsters. I want to
Mhm,
say the Teamsters are 80% male.
Mm,
So that was something that came up in an interview today as well. That there's again that misogynoir that's happening
mhm,
for them, and they had so many people complain about supporting Kamala that they decided to just stay out. I work with the firefighters with the International Association of Firefighters, and I don't know if you all saw a couple weeks ago when JD Vance and Tim Walz visited their gathering. I happen to know the two gentlemen who are the chief or the president of the union and the vice president are friends of mine. And just watching how people responded differently. But even in the firefighters, I was in Chicago speaking at the Illinois firefighters convening, and there's a lot of like anti-woman stuff that they're still dealing with. And I'll acknowledge that IAFF is doing a really great job of challenging their members to think outside that box. But much like the Teamsters, it's a very male dominated association, and they still have a ton of work to do. And there were quite a few people in the room that I got to speak in who, even though they're union, lean conservative in their politics.
mhm.
hmm.
So
Yeah.
cut off your nose to spite your face.
Mhm.
Yep.
Were you going to say something, Steph?
Oh, I was just gonna, yeah. I mean, I think when you have all the pie, right? Statistically, you have all the pie. Having to share said pie feels like
Mhm,
oppression, feels like
mhm,
you are losing out. And so we're seeing this manifested
mhm,
in these endorsements to
mhm,
Aaron's point. And then again, just kind of the historical context of some of the struggles that unions have had
mhm,
overall with race, racism, sex, sexism, like all of these, different
mhm.
pieces, again, microcosm of society.
Yeah, that convergence is definitely happening. Was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago, a Boeing person who is on strike. So just listening to what's happening there,
Mhm.
interesting all in itself. So there you have that. And I just read about another Starbucks location just got approval to unionize. And so this is all of that perfect storm of all these issues that are just kind of out there. And I just kind of come back to, um, how is this all going to end? Right? Like, how is this all going to end? It just kind of feels like we're at the, what do you call it in music? The crescendo part of the music page. And so we're there, we're getting to that peak part. What's going to happen next? So, hey, we're almost at the hour here. I just wanted us to continue to talk about these topics that it doesn't seem like no one else talks about or that no one wants to contend with. And I think, this whole notion of bully behavior deserves a national look. I think that um, the national media has gotten wired into the same pattern of behavior, the same coverage. The only who I will give credit to Joy Reid and to Rachel Maddow. I think both of them are two women media people who take on tough issues and have conversations that no other media people are having, and are not afraid to deal with things head on. So I just wanted to make sure we continued, because as I sit here and watch again the children and kind of where we are, and school's only been in session for a week, and we have so much drama happening there already. So
Can I say one thing really quickly about the crescendo? The crescendo, as out of control and unhinged as it is, I think we should be a little hopeful about the crescendo, because when crescendos happen, that means we're really at the precipice of change.
Yes.
And so it makes me want to pull my hair out. It makes me frustrated. It makes me want to lay in the fetal position in my bed. But also, civil rights movements and big just social change movements,
yeah,
there is this crescendo of unhinged behavior before you push through. So
right.
that's one piece of
Good
hope.
point. Very good point. Great way to close. Final thoughts for tonight, ladies. That was a great way to wrap it up. We I guess I'll speak for myself, should be a better beacon of hope, looking at where we are as a society. And maybe, for some of those people that were watching their TikToks, they can learn from women like us who are in front of them, if you will, who have lived through a lot of this and can help people get through these very difficult times that we're all facing. Erin, did you have any final words you wanted to say before we wrap for the evening? Fastest
Just
hour of the day.
again, be the change that you want to see in the world. So I encourage each one of us, have hope even when it feels hopeless. I mean, we're all women of faith, so I just am believing that there's a way out of this, and I choose joy as a radical act every day, every single day. I choose joy and kindness, and I'm going to swim upstream that way.
Yes. Well, thank you both for being here with me and sharing space again this evening. You both look nice in the red lipstick. I don't see that yours is on. Stephanie, do you have yours on?
It didn't match today's makeup look.
Okay.
So, but I wore it yesterday.
Anyhow, there's a whole story behind our red lips here. Stephanie hooked us up. You guys have a good week. We'll to our audience, thank you for joining us this evening, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good week, everybody.
Half that up in sacks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah.